Alright, so welcome everybody to another episode of the Lest You Forget podcast, a historical podcast by Tenement Yard Media. I'm your host, Davey, and on this episode, we're going to be talking about Jamaica's first corrupted politician. Yeah, but before I start, I just want to shout out all the persons, anybody at all out there who has ever donated money to Tenement Yard, because we'd have to draw the pot for that episode, yeah. Largely because there was no book or academic text or like research paper or report, like anything like that we could like find that went into details around Malcolm case. Like I personally found out about Malcolm case while reading a book, and it was just like a line. And then other literature that I've read is just like a line mentioned this case, like, oh, this happened in 1951, and then that's it. That's in a paragraph, like literally a sentence. You see me? So it's like yeah, we have to go through other sources to like get information around the case and stuff like that. And to write the episode, we have to go through documents that came from the parliamentary library, legal documents, court cases and stuff like that. Stuff from the National Library of Jamaica, the National Archives, and the Gleaner Archives, as the newspaper was covering the court case back then. So yeah, and then they're never cheap, they're not free. So shout out to you if you have ever given us money or anything like that. But then shout out to like all listeners, at least you forget, and anybody actually was ever interacted with anything that Tenement Yard Media has done over the past 5 years. Both Lest We Forget and Tenement Yard Media turned 5 this year. So, it's been a journey, and we're doing what we can, what we have, right? Also want to specifically shout out the National Library of Jamaica, because the cover art for this episode, which is a photo of Malcolm, it came from them. We tried to get a photo of him and we just couldn't, and National Library of Jamaica assisted and stuff like that in finding us a picture. That's actually their only picture of him. So yeah, shout out to them. The reference librarian that we were talking to throughout the whole time was the pass, yeah, that's his name. So shout out to him. Just shout out the whole team, the whole National Library of Jamaica. Forever grateful. So if you want a picture of like Malcolm and stuff, I would say go through them as well. It's not free. You have to pay money. Just want you to know that. That's fine. It's a service this. So yeah, you can just go through them. And then another thing as well is that because of the nature of the episode, you're gonna realize like the page, the website, the episode page on the website, it's gonna be a little bit scanty, largely because again the way documents from like the different archival institutions in Jamaica that we use primarily to write this episode. So we couldn't really like be like, yo, read a book here, do this and stuff like that. So you're not gonna see no book or papers on the website. However, we did recommend Power Game by Perry Hensel, which is the follow-up to The Harder They Come. Power Game came out in the 1980s, and it goes into a bit around corruption, political corruption in Jamaica. So we did recommend that. Me personally, Davey, there's a book that I recommend. It's not a Caribbean book, so it never makes sense like putting it up on the website. But just for me personally, like if you have time and stuff like that and just want like other stuff, I personally recommend No Longer at Ease by Chinua Achebe, which that's set in Nigeria, and it's a follow-up to Things Fall Apart, right? And yeah, that book, political corruption in Nigeria, corruption in the public sector, like I personally recommend that book. Yeah, it's a follow-up to Things Fall Apart, but I don't think you have to read Things Fall Apart to really understand the story. It's me, I say, like, you not have to do that. Because, like, I read Things Fall Apart, but I read Things Fall Apart in high school. It's me, I say, like, when I was doing CSEC, my high school just chose all of the Nigerian books them for literature in my year. So, yeah, I read it as a teenager, but, for No Longer at Ease, I didn't reread Things Fall Apart, and yeah, the story still get it. So yeah, I feel like I can do without that. But as much before, this is like a personal recommendation. It's not Lest We Forget. It's a DV personal recommendation for like people who want to go Roop roop. The other thing is that this episode is titled Jamaica's First Corrupted Politician, and we had to use corrupted politician in a legal sense. That this corrupted politician, is me I'm trying to say, is the first one where it went to the court, and the court say yes, this person is guilty of fraud and corruption. Is me I'm trying to say? We couldn't use allegations here, largely because, like, even before Malcolm, there were politicians who had, allegations against them. Like, for example, like in the early 1940s, there was one politician who, a party president, future national hero even, who, there were allegations that he was, misappropriating funds from organization that he had leadership roles in. Is he? And y'all can guess who that is. Jamaica have 4 politicians who are national hero, 2 who were dead and buried by the 1940s. So I can guess who that is. But yeah, because that wasn't like a legal situation, it wasn't like, the state said like, yo, there was no like, it didn't become a legal thing. We couldn't start it from there. We had to start it at Malcolm. So I just want to make that very clear. But later down in the episode, we're going to talk about like, politicians who, based on official investigations and reports, they resign. You understand? Because their name and their position got caught up. You understand? It was largely like misconduct. You understand? The corruption, there was no like corruption charges brought against them. You understand? So in those cases, we say allegations based on official investigations and reports. So we just want to get that clear. And understand? Just get that clear. So that's the whole, premise of the episode. I don't think premise is the word I was supposed to use there, but it's whatever. Yeah. So besides all of that, hopefully we'll go through everything. 7 minutes, close to 7 minutes. All right. So with that all being said, let us begin the episode. All right. So Joseph Zachariah Malcolm was born in a community of Nakalva, Anova in 1892. After finishing secondary school, he ended up studying at the Jamaica University College. By 1917, he was out of school and spent the next 20 years teaching at several primary schools, including Gurney's Mount and Jericho schools in Hanover, Duanville in Trelawney, and Mersville in Westmoreland. Now, in the 1940s, he made a shift from teaching to politics. In 1944, he ran as an independent in Jamaica's first ever election after adult suffrage, where he successfully beat out 3 other candidates to win the seat of Hanover Eastern. You understand? Them days like early, like first election after adult suffrage in 1944, you could have win a seat as an independent, is it? And yeah, ironically, Malcolm actually beat out 4 other independents to win a seat in that year's election. And Malcolm won 2,604 votes on the ballot, 33.5% of its totality, where his closest challenger was the Jamaica Labour Party candidate Greville Ripton Levy, who won 2,209 votes. For persons who who know nothing about Jamaican politics here, moving forward, I'm going to refer to Jamaica Labour Party as JLP. Cool? All right, we'll move on. However, by the late decade, Malcolm was now a member of JLP, where he represented a party in the 1949 general elections. And just like the previous election, he won the seat, beating out 3 other candidates. This time, he won 3,770 votes, 44% of its totality, where the next best results was the People's National Party PNP candidate, Winsbert M. Grubb. Likewise, moving forward, I'm going to refer to People's National Party as PNP. Understand? Those are for, non-Jamaican political people. People who don't know Jamaican politics like that. That's information is for them. Don't come and be like, yo, where ya do it? It's not for you, babes. It's not for you. Our audience is not only Jamaicans. So, yeah. All right, we'll move on. Now, seeing as GLP would win 17 out of 32 seats on offer, they would form the government where Malcolm was stopped to replace J.A. McPherson as Minister of Education. And it's in these 2 roles, Member of Parliament for Hanover Eastern and Minister of Education, that J.Z. Malcolm would be in when Jamaica's first political corruption scandal went down. Now, in November 1951, it was announced that a government minister was selling farm workers call cards, right? And again, for non-Jamaicans, right? And I'm sure somebody I got comment, why you explain all of this? I'm sure. But again, I say, our audience are not just Jamaicans. So, what are farm worker cards? So, in the simplest term that I can explain farm worker cards, farm worker cards are this application process, right? Which allow persons to take part in overseas farm work. And for Jamaicans specifically, it's usually the US or Canada that these persons go to. Now, who get access to this application is determined by the Ministry of Labour and Social Security. But most importantly, right, because it's overseen by the government, this is not for sale. Okay? It has never been for sale. And I want to make that very clear for anybody who is listening. You understand? Farm work call cards are not for sale. If somebody is coming to you and saying that you have to pay to get access, don't do it. Don't do it. Don't do it. Please don't do it. It's not for sale. Go through the ministry. And if you have no idea how the application process works, go through your MP. They're there for that. They are there for that purpose, right? So, as such, news of a government minister involved in this scheme raised many eyebrows. To note, at this time, the public did not know who was the minister in question. So everybody in the society had tried to guess and stuff like that. And it became like, I'm not going to say consume society. We really couldn't find evidence that it consumed society. But persons had questions. You see me? How was this investigation happening? Who was this person? You see? Because it was very vague. It was just like, I look at humming a go on over society, but no information about the hummings, you see? And because of that, by the end of the month, then opposition leader Norman Manley raised the issue in Parliament seeking clarification on the investigation, you understand, to which the Minister of Finance and General Purposes, Sir Harold Allen, stated the following, and I'm going to quote here. The government is not aware of the existence of any evidence which would justify the institution of criminal proceedings against him. End quote. So, based on what him say, you see me, we know as a man, you see it, and what Allen is saying is that, yeah, investigation are going on, but as far as him know, there is no evidence to charge the person. So, him no know where money depend. Like you are doing a lot here over nothing because this person not charging a brought against him. You see me, I say? No, this is where the story kind of get murky here, right? Because whether Sir Allen know that there were sufficient evidence, whether he, was being cheeky, like, we don't know if he was being honest or not. Because in just a matter of days, literally just a matter of days, not even a full week, just in a matter of days, the public was made aware that there was indeed evidence against the investigated politician. You understand? So whether the government did know or not, the police didn't know still. Police did clearly know, right? And a December 3rd, 1951 article published by the Daily Gleaner stated the following.
On Saturday morning, the Honorable Joseph Z. Malcolm, Minister for Education, was arrested by CID Chief Superintendent David Chase and charged with conspiracy to defraud a number of persons. The charge follows police investigations into reports of malpractices in the distribution of call cards for United States farm workers. Malcolm was arrested at his office at the Education Department on Saturday morning.
Now arrested alongside Malcolm was his wife Ellen and one of his associates, Victor Graham. Now the trial got underway in early 1952. Eyewitnesses' testimonies would tell how Malcolm and his wife and Victor, and other associates, right, did go about doing this scheme. You see? And a February 22nd Gleaner article titled Farm Card Case Witnesses Tell Court They Paid stated the following.
Violet Vastiano told of accompanying Wing and Foster Johnson to the home of the Malcolms and of having paid £6 to Mr. Malcolm for her son Wing to get a call card.
On another testimony, the Gleaner reported,
David Williams also gave evidence about a £14 payment to Mrs. Malcolm and £7 which he said he had paid to Mr. Malcolm to obtain a ticket.
Now, days later, on March 18, in the Spanish Town courthouse, all three persons were found guilty of 4 counts for conspiracy to defraud and conspiracy to effect a public mischief in connection with farm workers' tickets. Malcolm was sentenced to 2 years of imprisonment, while his wife was bound over to be of good behavior for 2 years. That means she's on probation. Like, just she's on probation, right? And Graham, on the other hand, was sentenced to 18 months of imprisonment. Now, when passing his judgment to Malcolm, His Honor A.C.V. Graham stated the following.
Joseph Malcolm, it gives me great regret to come to this conclusion because your act brings disgrace not only on you, but on all of us, everybody in this courtroom and outside of it.
Now, in the wake of his imprisonment, Malcolm was swiftly replaced in his ministerial position. On March 25th, Malcolm's position as Minister of Education was revoked by the House of Representatives. Now, just by this happening, it was the first time in Jamaica's history, under the 1944 Constitution, that an elected member was removed from the Executive Council. First time. Malcolm ministerial post was replaced by Lester L. Simmons. No, you see that name there, Lester L. Simmons? Keep it close to the front of your brain. We'll soon get back to him. Just remember him. Right? Now, we'll move on. Now, on the matter of Malcolm's position as a member of parliament, because he was also a member of parliament, right? In Hanover, the opposition PMP would stress the need to have the now jail MP to be replaced. Like, for a while between March and August, GLP did wishy-washy and how this entire situation ever got. While PMP had double down, say, yo, do something about this. And by August, Willow Isaacs raised a motion for the Hanover Eastern constituency to be declared vacant. And it is with this that Malcolm would file 2 summonses to continue holding his seat and validity as a voter. Now, in January 1953, a judge quickly dismissed the summonses. By April, Malcolm was officially disqualified from the House of Representatives by the courts, where he was discontinued from holding his Hanover Eastern seat. Now, according to Justice McGregor, his arrest made him not eligible to have his name placed on the voters list. Now, upon his release from prison, Malcolm went back to teaching, where he kept a private school in Richmond Hill, Montego Bay. In 1959, he fell ill and died on August 15 at the Kingston Public Hospital. So, that's the story of Jamaica's first corrupted politician. Wish we could have more, but hey, listen, I wrote with what I had, right? I wrote with what I could find. Now, in the years that followed Malcolm's conviction, other politicians would face the courts over criminal charges. For almost 2 years later, on November 11, 1953, Lester L. Simmons, remember I'm telling you, keep him name close to the brain, right? The man who replaced Malcolm as Minister of Education was arrested for selling state secrets. Months later, on July 23, 1954, Simmons and a Gleaner reporter, Vincent Truman, were convicted on 2 counts under the Official Secret Act, where Simmons was sent to prison for 15 months. State secrets, State secrets. That's wild. There was a situation early in the 70s where I know PMP did they, what do you call that, when like despair is not the word. Despair is not the word. Let's go kick out. They kick out somebody out of the party for sharing secrets around. I think that was in 74. I want to say it's around 74, maybe early 75. But yeah, I know that situation that happened in the 70s with PMP. But like Simmons did a sell. You understand? Simmons said if you open film with him, I want something in a film pocket. So it's a whole different situation. Anyway, with these 2 political scandals dominating the news headline, right? That Simmons' arrest and Malcolm's arrest, PMP stressed the criminal cases of both Malcolm and Simmons in their 1955 general electoral campaign. This would play a major role in bringing the party to victory, their first general electoral win under the 1944 Constitution. It also influenced the Sweep Them Out slogan in that year's election, which the PMP still use to this day. You so if you have like paid attention to Jamaican politics, any election at all, you kind of realize that PMP has the broom as one of their symbols. Yeah, it has been it has been a PMP symbol since 1955, and that's really the story around it. You see, and I don't want to get too much into it, but I would say if like you're interested in like political communication and political strategy and want to do like more research into that whole broom situation and sweep them out with PMP, I would say that John Blair by Rachel Manley. Um, she wrote the book. She wrote the book John Blair. She has a whole chapter dedicated to like how that whole story, how the broom and the sweep them out slogan came about and stuff like that. So I would say check that resource, for that. Either way, we'll move on. By the 1960s, Arthur Burt, Minister of State in the Ministry of Education, faced the first major allegations of corruption in independent Jamaica. Education Ministry. Okay, be bad. Either way. Now, Arthur Burt's situation had to do with his handling of the World Bank Finance School Building Program in 1966. When a commission of inquiry was done into the program handling, the report stated the following. Suggestions of a grave character were made involving Dr. Burt personally. End quote. The thing is, right, before Burt could even show up in front of the commission for answer questions, the man cut Jamaica and flee to the US. Is it like, you not stick around for none of this? You understand? The man just cut. Cool? Now, by the 1990, J.A.G. Smith, a former Minister of Labour in the 1980s, was charged with conspiracy to defraud farm workers and sentenced to 5 years in prison at hard labour. Almost 15 years later, in 2006, the PMP would be embroiled in a global anti-corruption scandal when a questionable $31 million donation by Dutch oil lifting firm Trafigura was donated to the party. That scandal played out in the Dutch courts. Then in 2008, Kern Spencer, former state minister in the energy ministry, faced corruption charges in relation to missing light bulbs donated by the Cuban government, as well as monetary irregularities in the distribution of said light bulbs. Despite the charges, in 2014, Kern Spencer was freed of all charges. Now, in 2019, Minister of Education, Youth and Information, Royal Reid, was removed from his post over reports of corruption, nepotism, and misappropriation of public funds within the ministry, as well as its agencies, including Caribbean Maritime University. That matter is currently being played out in the courts. Recently, the St. Catherine Municipal Corporation was raided as a part of a multi-million-dollar fraud probe. And in the midst of all of this, there are the many politicians who have resigned when faced with corruption, public funds mismanagement, and government interference allegations based on reports and official investigations. In the last 30 years, these cases include, again, this is the last 30 years me I talk about, and this is not all the cases, but these are some of the most high-profile ones, right? Let me list them out. In December 1991, Minister of Mining and Energy, Horace Clark, he resigned over a scandal that saw a waiver of $29.5 million in duties that Shell Company West Indies should have paid to the government on gasoline imported into the country. At that same time, then Minister of Finance PJ Patterson also resigned, and in a new cabinet shake-up weeks later, Patterson was noticeably missing. However, he would return to the cabinet in March 1992, this time as Prime Minister. Then in April 2002, Dr. Carl Blythe resigned as Minister of Housing when a report claimed that he interfered in the day-to-day management of Operation Pride and floated guidelines. For persons who have no idea what Operation Pride was, it was this government initiative, policy, let's call it that, it was supposed to alleviate squatting by allowing low-income persons to get access to housing at affordable prices through government subsidies. Now, in July 2009, State Minister in the Ministry of Transport and Works, Joseph Hibbert, resigned after he was named in a corruption investigation by officials from the United Kingdom. The issue involved Hibbert's tenure as Chief Technical Director of the ministry in the 1990s. Then in November 2011, Mike Henry, in his capacity as Minister of Transport and Works, resigned following reports that over $60 million was spent on furniture and a further $102 million in refurbishing the office of the National Works Agency. 60 mil, 102 mil. Vibes. Then in 2013, Richard Azan, as Minister of Transport, Works and Housing, resigned following reports of improper construction of shops and land owned by the Clarendon Parish Council. Still, he was reinstated months later when the Office of the Director of Public Prosecution stated no criminal charges would be filed. Then in 2018, Andrew Whitley resigned as Energy Minister when the Auditor General released a report that detailed widespread abuse of power, poor governance, corruption, bullying, nepotism, and misappropriation of public funds at the Petroleum Corporation of Jamaica. That's a list. That is a list. Then in July 2020, J.C. Hutchinson was stripped of his duties as Minister of Industry, Commerce, Agriculture, and Fisheries after reports came out that Hutchinson helped his partner's company get the approval to manage the lands. According to the Gleaner, and I'm going to quote here, 2,400 acres of state-owned lands located in Holland St. Elizabeth are being managed by a company of which Hutchinson's partner, Lola Marshall Williams, is a director and shareholder. End quote. Now, Hutchinson's son was also operating a company, Holland Farm and Garden Supplies, on the property. If I remember correctly, J.C. Hutchinson said never know same son did operate on the property, if I remember correctly. Now, in the wake of the entire situation, Hutchinson apologized to the Jamaican public and was reassigned to the office of the Prime Minister. And yet, persons have issues with these resignations and lack of prosecutions that have become the norm in Jamaican politics. As the then head of the National Integrity Action, NIA, Dr. Trevor Monroe told the Gleaner in August 2019, and I'm going to quote here, for over 30 years, resignations have been followed by ineffective investigations, few prosecutions, and only one conviction. This deficit cannot be allowed to continue. It is essential to arrest the decline in public trust, instill public confidence that high-level, politically connected individuals, when there is evidence, will serve prison time as the Minister of Labour did 30 years ago. End quote. Now, in recent years, there have also been government officials who have breached the Integrity Commission Act and Parliament Integrity of Members Act. In 2011, Member of Parliament and former government minister Anthony Hilton was accused of failing to say on his statutory declarations that he was a director in a company. Now, two of those charges were eventually dismissed. The third one, we don't know. We don't really know where there. To be honest with you, we couldn't really find a lot of information on it if it was dismissed as well or it's still in the courts, because for like up until 2020 it was still in the courts, or Mr. Hilton get a fine or so. We don't know about that charge there. So yeah. Then in September 2023, Marissa Dalrymple Philibert resigned as Speaker and as Member of Parliament for Trelawney Southern with immediate effect. This was due to charges related to breaches of the Parliament Integrity of Members Act and the Integrity Commission Act, which is in connection to the purchase of a 2015 Mercedes-Benz on concession, but which she omitted from her statutory declarations for 6 years. In a statement, she declared the incident, and I'm going to quote here, a genuine oversight, end quote. Almost a year later, in November 2024, she was back as MP for Trelawney Southern after a by-election. In February 2025, she was fined $900,000 after pleading guilty to breaching the Integrity Commission Act. Then in 2024, government senator and a former minister of state for foreign affairs, Leslie Campbell, was found guilty for failing to comply with repeated requests from the Integrity Commission for additional information about his statutory declaration spanning several years. He was fined $400,000 in April 2025. I'm gonna be very honest with you. I feel case would have waited upon for drop this episode. I feel case would have waited upon. Also for non-Jamaicans listening, the Integrity Commission, they are the island's only anti-corruption watchdogs for public officials. So yeah. Then there are the countless other corruption allegations and conflict of interest by Jamaican politicians who have never faced any legal or career repercussions. Still, in looking back at its legacy, Malcolm's 1951 scandal serves as a reminder of how the country hold politicians accountable and our lack thereof in the 21st century. The case is also one of the first foundation that was laid for Jamaicans' distrust in the nation's politicians, a problem subsequent governments have made worse by facilitating, downplaying, attacking anti-corruption agencies and watchdogs, as well as playing a blame game when it comes to political corruption on the island. And we never get into it a bit much for this episode because technically people now breaking the laws and stuff like that. But at the same time, you see that conflict of interest situation there? Like just the optics, like there's so much examples of it in Jamaican politics, bro. It's just sometimes it's just like bad man. What we are doing, G. This is it's such an annoying. It's so annoying. You see? Because in the best way possible, I can sum this up is that Jamaican politicians will complain about a problem, them help facilitate, and then turn around and want you to take them serious when them offer solutions on this problem. It's just like, bad man, you not take yourself serious. So why me for take you serious on this issue? Like, what we are do? Like, what we really are do? Is it like, we'll move on, cause nothing I'm really say I gotta really move the needle. Like, it is what it is. Like, it is. We'll move on. Yeah. So in summarizing this episode, right, and just, looking at Jamaican politics when it comes to corruption and looking at really how we as a society hold these politicians accountable, we are going to end this episode, you understand, with the words of Protege, right, from his 2017 track, Blood Money.
Was about to be a politician too. Maybe then I couldn't make any decision. Look, maybe then I make 100 million disappear. Then me act like me no care what you vote me back in there. Because this sad reality. In a Jamaica say your status or your salary. Man the road like everyone no leap a felony. But them have a family, a boost up the economy. Police cancel operation. Cause no real bad man now go station. Now if you check the situation, a blood money running nation. Come take a look in a Jamaica. Injustice in the place now. If what you see not really faze you, then you what the problem what we face too. Shit.
And with that, we call an end to this episode. To view sources and or recommendations to learn more, visit our website at tenementyardmedia.com. A transcript of the episode will be available 5 days after it has been posted to podcast outlets. Follow our social media pages at tenementyard_ on X, formerly Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, YouTube, and now Blue Sky to view additional posts on this and other topics, as well as other content created by The Yard. A quick note before I go, we're on Patreon, patreon.com/tenementyardmedia. You can support the show with a monthly donation of your choice at tenementyardmedia.com. Until next time, I'm Gabrielle and this has been Lest We Forget, a historical podcast by Tenement Yard Media. What good?